In the fancy little game of Dungeons and Dragons, it's not uncommon for the players to go to taverns or even drink alcoholic beverages. Today we endeavour to turn this enterprise into one given even more purpose in the way of a campaign-long mission. It all begins with the joining of a monastic brewery where the party or a specific player will be asked to find the best drinks in the world. So when the players enter a tavern, the song and dance of asking for a few drinks is much more than just a throwaway line. This ongoing guild quest is pretty unique in the way it operates, and while we'll certainly discuss the specifics of the moving pieces, as always, we're going to talk through how this whole thing developed. To kickstart this journey, let's begin with the idea for this quest/guild when it was first floated in Twitch chat by Clueless Forum, done so while we were creating our massive city map. Throw in a winery. It's operated by a group where its members travel to every inn and tavern within 3 days of travel and sell the popular brewery. They're the happiest group of monks in this part of the world. Ooh, okay. I love that. I love that. The party meet this group and maybe it's like a brewery guild or something like that and they get admitted into the guild. But like the campaign that I'm running and that is like meant to be, it's like a very like you travel all over the world. You bounce from location to location. And I think this is sort of perfect as a way for the party to get like basically commissioned to go to different taverns and test out their beers and things like that. Maybe they can write back to this winery and say like, send out the people that are going to like taste these different wines, have these different experiences and maybe like learn the tricks of the trade to come back and try to emulate or whatever in this sort of Silver Bay Port winery. I think that's what the quest is going to be. It's not like a quest, it's like, you know, they get to be part of a guild, I guess. These first ruminations would very much act as the base, and everything else from here would build upon the idea that the party become part of a brewery guild, where they go to different taverns and report back to the guild about the awesome drinks they've drank. This was a cool basis for a guild/quest that I was excited to build from, but it wouldn't be until a future stream where we really specifically thought about the guild that it started to take shape. So something that I think could be interesting is it's like, okay, why are they tasting and testing different drinks? And I think maybe we could have this brewery that's, you know, somewhere here we can figure out. I kind of like having it as this temple and kind of having it in the style of a monastic brewery. But I think this monastic brewery could maybe be trying to establish a list, like a competition of the best alcoholic beverages in the world. And the party have been hired, along with many other people, to go and test the different beverages and like basically suggest which ones like that they think could be on the list. This idea of the brewery guild making an international list of the best drinks was a good base level reasoning for why NPCs are asking the party to drink fancy beverages. But this quest was always supposed to be supplementary to the act of going to a tavern, which the party will inevitably do regardless. It was very much not supposed to be a motivator for them to go there. The primary goal of this guild's existence, which we'd call the Brute Tongue, is to amplify the tavern going experience. This could be a really fun way, instead of just doing like mead or beer or wine or just, you know, regular drinks at a tavern or whatever the party might hire. It could be fun for the DM or for the players to just think of the most like extravagant drinks possible. The party go in and like, what's your best drink? And the brewery can be like, yes, we have the flaming elven debouche, which sets your insides on fire in a metaphorical sense. And they're like, oh, what is that? And then you can play around with, you know, these crazy drinks rather than just having it be, we go to the tavern, we get a drink, it's however many copper or whatever, and then they get the drink. Could lead to some fun drink roleplay. The facilitation of this fun drink roleplay concept would be something we'd expand out much later when we figured out exactly how we would integrate this narrative seamlessly into any session. For now though, Ruin Mirage would make a great suggestion that helped bulk out the Brute Tongue's lore. Ruin Mirage, first thing that comes to mind is hiring the party to spy on the competition. I think this could be maybe like an undercurrent of the guild, right? Why are they setting up a competition? They're setting up the competition under the premise that like, oh, well, we would just want to create an official list of all the best drinks in the world. But really, what they're doing is they're actually like going and officially testing and putting this competition on as like the guise of which they're going to be spies and go in and infiltrate and steal all the competitors' recipes. So they're using the competition as like a lie. As a lie. You know, the phrase as a lie, as if that's more grandiose than just the concept of they're lying. I think that's what we're gonna do. This secondary corporate espionage angle would end up becoming quite pivotal for this guild and the subsequent quest. I love that the list wasn't purely about finding the best drinks. This provides greater optionality for characterization of the guild and the types of players that may want to get involved, as there's the standard drink guzzling adventurers angle, the corporate spy angle, and the monk angle, which would also beef up later. The Brute Tongue's reasoning for existing and the party's general role in it was good, but we needed to figure out how the party got admitted into the guild. I think what we could maybe do for how the party get qualified is we could just start super simple. We could just start with like a testing competition in town. So the Monastic Brewery, I think, can be pretty open about the fact, you know, they're doing a lot of PR stunts. They're trying to like publicize like, oh, we're creating this competition because, you know, they need it to be popular so it actually has like weight. You know, so they could be like holding in town or in their sort of brewery wine tasting competitions to see like, oh, who has the most sort of palated tongue when it comes to alcoholic beverages? Are people maybe more discerning or distinguishing? And if they are, then they can become qualified testers that they can go out into the world and can be trusted to report back on the best drinks. This initiation quest would end up becoming a much larger, more significant process than I imagined, and its creation process gets its own video because of this. The main takeaways is that we would change the central format, so instead of the whole party becoming a part of the guild, it would only be a single player. Of course, the whole party could get their official Brute Tongue badges if they really wanted, and they all get to participate fully in the initiation quest. I just think this acts much better as the perfect character development opportunity if it's focused on one player, where it's just their personal goal to get information about these drinks. This gives them a new collective they're a part of, specific NPCs they can communicate with, and in general is a great dimension the player can use for some saucy character development. I always try to give players different opportunities, whether in the form of guilds, secret groups, NPC relationships, roles, specific experiences, incredibly notable actions, whatever, that individual players and their characters can be highly connected and related to. This gives greater individualization within the group, and the players always love when something special happens to just them. This is also a situation where, as the initiation quest is an open event, whichever player shows the most interest can be admitted. In turn, the more refined elements of the guild can be personalized to whichever player indicates and even fights for this to be their thing, rather than specifically building it for one person and then being in the awkward position where they may or may not be interested. With a little more background and questing in the books, I now spent time making the actual brewery and temple maps for the Brute Tongue. During this process, we'd start to figure out a little more about the actual Monastic Brewery and their members. Yeah, hello, Master Brewer, like, would I be able to have a conversation and a drink of a beverage with you? And they go, oh, of course, my child. And they come into this room and then they have a little slap of the old gas bag. You know, I've been thinking about sobriety lately. And they go, oh God, no. You know, we here drink beer and we drink wine. You know, that's how we get through our day on time. You know, and they're like, I know, I'm feeling really sluggish. I've gained a lot of weight. And, you know, the Master Brewer says, well, that's just the consequence of being, you know, following a beer god, an alcoholic god. Those are the sacrifices we make, my child, is to never really feel proper in our body. It's to feel tired and to feel sluggish and to feel tipsy at all times. That's the give up. And they go, of course, Father, I will be back on, you know, my words slurring way. And then they leave the office, having had their faith reignited in binge drinking and the brewery god they follow. So I think that's the energy we want to get across. And with that, we need some gosh darn drinks in this office. We can't hear you 2 bookcases. I think we can get rid of 1, and I think we can get some drinks. They're not reading that many books. Let's get a table of drinks. This would be the first true establishment of the religious side of things for this brewery. Well, at first I was more focused on the brewery side of things. I thought it'd be so much more engaging if we really made it so this monastic order truly followed an alcohol god. And many of their tenets are around constantly drinking and being interconnected with the condition of drunkenness. Once again, this gives the player another angle to play with. Maybe they want to get really into the religion and the god they commune with becomes a pivotal part of their character. With this, we'd did have established a lot of information about the brute tongue, how it's meant to interact with the party and its role in the world. But we still needed to figure out the key part of this guild, what the ongoing session by session beats were of testing the various drinks in taverns. The main things I wanted to keep in mind was to create something that'd be highly replicable and was something a DM could easily improvise off each time, while simultaneously eliciting notably unique experiences and roleplay opportunities. I think what we're going to do is there's going to be 18 possible drink tests they can do, and they relate to each one of these skills. And the reason we sort of pick this is because it's like, one, I want it to be something where it's like, there's a really easy baseline for the DM to pick from, but it's always going to be different. So they can improvise like why the player needs to make the check of these different skills. And I think like leaning on these different characters or whatever, like, you know, having to make a performance check versus having to make an athletics check or whatever leads to really different scenarios of what happens to the player when they have these drinks, without really having to do too much preparation, which is sort of the perfect level we want for this, because it's sort of a continual overarching thing. You know, maybe if it's something like a history check, it's like, oh, okay, maybe like the drink gives them like connection to their ancestral beings, right? And if they roll really good on their history check, they can start to feel the power and memories and knowledge of their ancestors that is sort of like amplified through the drink. And, you know, that's sort of how we can rate these drinks, and that's sort of how the narrativization of the different places can be. While this was a nice simple system that'd be easy to narrativize off, it was forgetting the key aspect of this quest, the actual drink reviewing and ingredient deduction. So we needed to rework this process to reintroduce this back into the mix. The easy fix was to have the changing skill relate to how well the person handles the consequence of the drink. And I should also mention, I suddenly envision this to be a situation where all the party drinks these drinks and they all have to deal with this situation, making this a group roleplay opportunity rather than just focused on the specific player. It's just the player's job to make this consistent secondary check that they'd always make, which would actually measure how well they discern the drink's goodness. I like nature. I like this being a very nature-based thing. Medicine? Hello, cool guy with swag 69. I think medicine's a good one, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the reason I'm leaning nature is because I think it's just more of an uncommon check, right? Like, I think medicine's just... people do that check a lot more. I always do like getting the more random skill checks into the game a bit more, and in this case, I think it makes a lot of sense. So I was happy to make a nature check the primary skill for this guild. One very homebrew aspect of this guild we'd work on is the related perk system. In my games, I love to introduce perk systems, and they mechanically act pretty similar to feats and backgrounds in many ways. However, these must be dedicatedly earned through characterization and narrativization within the game. They're not something players simply unlock at specific levels or can altogether just pick. The various perks would be unlocked the more drinks the players test, with the lower level perks providing proficiency in brewery tools and nature respectively, with the players gaining expertise if they already have proficiency in these things, something I like to do so players that aren't playing classes that can get expertise can narratively earn them through roleplay. For the higher level perks, we wanted a bit more choice, but also for these to have a bit more relationship to narrative. We'll say the player can choose to get advantage on 2 of the charisma checks while in taverns or drinking with people. So, you know, we're not going to prescribe it because maybe they want performance and intimidation. Maybe they want deception and performance, right? You know, maybe they want it to be their own skills. So I think having them be the optionality is going to be good. To really cement much of this guild, we'd go through and give our religion a proper name of Kegstando, and the god they praise would have an equally on-the-nose drinks-based name, calling them Bevy. Leaning into the religiosity of this game would also slightly reorient their narrative as well. Yeah, I like this as an idea of like the reason they want to do corporate espionage is less like profit making, although that may be an aspect of it, is because like they follow an alcoholic god and they're like, yo, like if we think people should be drunk all the time, let's go find the absolute best drinks, let's produce them, and let's like start to give them out. And maybe we even take away the sort of profitable element, and this is more just a sort of a religiously divine element of like, the people need access to all the best drinks. We'll make them all and we'll give them out. I kind of like that as an energy. While we had a few more tweaks to make, I'd leave it here knowing much of the cracks would be filled in relation to the specific player that would enter the guild. Ongoing quests, I think is quite different from what we usually have, where quests are sort of, you start, you do it, you finish, and that's it. And this is very much sort of, you start it, and then it's just like a little side narrative for a single player that they can sort of continuously do over and over again, sort of whenever they choose, or sort of whenever in sessions. And a lot of these sort of situations may only take like 5-10 minutes. They're not supposed to be like massive intervals of time every single session. And I really, really like that. And I like that as sort of, you know, a player getting admitted into a guild and it becoming part of their character, and maybe they can build off it. You know, they are monks and it is a religion. So, you know, maybe they even, you know, multi-class into cleric or monk, or maybe their sort of subclass is a bit more religiously based, you know, things like this. So I like it as sort of a through line quest for a character. I think it's quite different. I think it's quite unique, and it should be really fun. And that's the video. If you enjoyed it, then subscribe to the channel for more similar content. Jump on the Patreon for access to this quest document and all the maps I've ever made. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.